making yogurt. Number of things we're going to need. We just kind of pull them out here and talk off the top of my head because I do this often. Basically, the idea with making yogurt is you want to get your milk to a set temperature of 110 degrees and keep it there for 4 hours with the culture to grow out into it. So here's the way that we go about it. We start with our milk, and I measure out my milk using just half-gallon jars because we make about 2 gallons at a time at least. We make up to 10 gallons once a week, so we make a lot of yogurt. So I just measure my non-fat yogurt up to here in these until I get however many I need. And then I'll just go ahead and pour those into my cook pot. We use a much larger cook pot. I didn't want to bring it. You put that on the stove at medium heat, yeah? Stirring often, probably every 5 minutes or so. A wooden spoon would be better than a metal spoon. Slotted is good for when you do the pasteurization process later. And keep your eyes on that baby because it's going to get to 110 kind of quickly, but there are some other things to be done in the meantime. And then what we use for incubation is a cooler. So this is a good size for half-gallon jars. So I'm going to take my clean jars and I'm just going to go ahead and put them right down in there with no lids on. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a 2-gallon container here. All right. Next thing to do, while still keeping an eye on the milk, the bigger the pot, the more time I have, is to go ahead and go back to the hot water, and we're now going to be looking for 118 degrees water, which for us with our solar hot water system is about as hot as it gets in the middle of the day. So I kind of try and save this process for the middle of the daytime if I can, so I don't have to go to the propane. But you want 118. So get 2 or 3 gallons in a pot of 118. Got my 2 or 3 gallons of hot water here I'm bringing over. And then I'm just going to simply pour that down into here, inside and outside of the half-gallon jars, up to right about here. Okay, and that's going to get those guys up to about 115. I lose 3 or so degrees just in the transition, yeah? And then close it, for sure, because we're trying to retain that heat at this point. Okay? So you're going to need a starter culture. Easiest way to go about it is just go down to the store and get organic, whole milk, non-flavored, non-sweetened yogurt. Maybe like a Nancy's, or sometimes you have to browse and find that. It has to have all those characteristics. You might be able to make a go of it with the non-fat yogurt, but don't get the sweetened or the flavored, yeah? And just use that as the starter with the same recipe I'm going to say, which is basically a tablespoon per half-gallon jar. Otherwise, you can go to a place like Cultures for Health. I'm going to pass around all these other things. These are just some other books that I didn't touch on. These guys are really great because they collect heirloom varieties from all different places in the world. So the Greek yogurt is an heirloom Greek yogurt. They went and found the one that they liked the best in the Greek countryside, and then they create that in a powdered form, and you can get it just in the regular mail. USPS, so it's only a few bucks for the box full, yeah? On their website, excellent FAQ page. So they'll walk you through all the kinds of questions you come up with for kefir or villi or kind of you name it, which we're just starting to experiment with, but so far we're just on the Greek yogurt. You have to give yourself a day ahead of time to create your starter culture from the powder before you make your large batches, unless you're going to just use commercial yogurt. Okay, so now we're at the point where this is up to 110. So I'm going to bring this over to my counter, and then I'm going to have a dipper. Something like that would be just a fine dipper. I open my cooler, take the jar with the hot water out, close the cooler every time, dump out the hot water, put this up on the counter, and then I'm going to add 1 tablespoonful of whatever my starter is. It's just yogurt. Yeah? Add the 1 tablespoonful. Add about 2 cups of this. Yeah? Put the lid on. Use the sealed lid that comes with the ball jar, even if you want to use a plastic lid on top instead of the circular top, because what we're going to do is put the lid on. I forgot the lid. And shake, 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 and get that all mixed up down in the bottom, yeah? Then I can go ahead and take the lid off again, come with the rest of the 110 degree milk, put it in there up to just below the screw, put the lid on permanently this time, and then that just slides back into its place, and then I come on and get the next one, closing every time. So I've lost another 3 degrees or so in that dumping and process. So you see I'm coming 118, 115, 112-ish or so is about what we're shooting for. That's kind of on the upper edge of what we're shooting for. More so would not only damage enzymes and vitamins in the milk, beginning with the most delicate ones, but also just the yogurt starter culture doesn't grow unless it's 110. So of course you want it at 110. Okay, these guys go down in here and then set the timer beep, 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 beep for 4 hours. And at the end of 4 hours, come back, take a look at it. Just turn it like this, and if it's turned into yogurt, you'll be able to tell it's coagulated. It's made a nice creamy yogurt. If it hasn't, occasionally it's a little runny. It has always worked for me to just put it back in and give it another hour and check again, or another 2 hours. I check every hour. One time it just never set, and I had to go to bed, and I just left it in overnight, and I looked at it in the morning, it was fine. It was set. So you could add a little bit of hot water to bring the water back up to 110, and that would probably speed up the finish if it hasn't happened by 4 hours. Okay, so that's the basic yogurt process. Then pull them, put them in the fridge, and that's going to shut it down so that you've now got it tasting the same way that it tastes when it's finished up until you've consumed it all. If you left it outside, it would continue to sour. So the last just 2 little bits just to have you guys all be done. I think I'm kind of still in timing. Just 1 more minute. Is your starter culture. So in order to keep that starter alive, by the way, the heirloom ones are called scobies. Symbiotic, what is it, Kaika? She left? Symbiotic community?
It's a symbiotic
colony of bacteria and yeast. Symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast, scobies, what they call it. So what has happened is these organisms have all evolved together in that community in Greece or wherever it is. Rather than what happened about 100 years ago is yogurt got analyzed by Western scientists, in Russia particularly, and those species that were determined to be yogurt species were propagated, and then that's what's been handed to us as yogurt. Is when you buy yogurt in the store, it's just a handful, you know, whereas with a SCOBY it might be 30, 40, or 100. They're more stable over time. You're not going to lose the viability of your culture as quickly as you get if you get one of these SCOBYs and keep it going. How do you keep it going? Well, you do have to pasteurize just a little bit. And what you do is, for the amount of starter you're going to need the next week, which for most people would be maybe only a half pint or a pint, go ahead and take that much milk and bring it up to 160. Yeah, that's going to pasteurize it. And basically what it's doing is it is killing whatever naturally occurring bacteria and yeast are in it. So that now when we place our starter culture in it, they're going to have that's what's going to take over. So that's what we do just to create the starter, and you can't really make a raw starter. You're going to lose it just within a few weeks. All right, so go ahead and bring that up to 160, then bring it back down to 110, which is best done for the way we do it, in a sink with a plug-in and cold water, and you just insert your pot down into there. If you're in a real hurry, you might want to change that cold water 2 or 3 times. Get it down to 110. By the way, you're going to be using... have good thermometers on hand for this, you know. You probably want 2, one for the milk and one for the water heating, but you could make do with 1 and wiping often. Get it down to 110 and then proceed as normal. Just put in a spoonful of starter from the week before, label that as starter, and that's going to be your next week's. And that should really be propagated every 7 days, you know. Let it go for 10, okay. 2 weeks is kind of pushing it, yeah, to keep your starter going. If you're not so keen on the raw yogurt, you can make pasteurized yogurt that way also, by bringing your large batch up to 160, then back down, then inoculating it. And that's just fine food too. A lot of the nutrient comes back into it once the lactic acid bacteria get to work on it. So pasteurized yogurt, really good stuff, you know, even though the raw is better. Cheese, quickly, because this is the finish. So you have your finished yogurt and it's cold. Do you want some yogurt cheese? Okay. All we have to do is take a strainer, put it over a container, lay in the cheesecloth, dump the half-gallon of yogurt in there. The whey is going to go through to the bottom immediately, quite a bit of whey. That's also very useful for lactofermentation or for mixing into your animal feed. People drink it also. It's the liquid part. Go ahead and gather up that yogurt. Tie off. Yeah? What we do is we just fabricated these sticks. So then I tie it off, and then I'll tie up to the stick. So it's hanging there like a glob. 3 or 4 or 5 of them can fit in the area of a 5-gallon bucket or a large pot, and this just catches on the edges of the pot. So the rest of the way can drain down into there. That needs to go in the fridge, so you gotta have space in your fridge, okay? Give it 12 hours, maybe less if you want more of a cream cheesy, maybe more if you want a crumbly cheesy. About 12 hours is what we do, and then we take that yogurt cheese, is what it's called, and we'll dice onion, garlic, Mediterranean spices, you know, parsley, chives, maybe a bit of salt, maybe a bit of olive oil, and just mix that all up as a real nice dip for your ulu chips or, you know, your taro chips or whatever. Goes nice on top of a salad. So that's a simple, basic way to get yourself a cheese without doing a separate process. Okay, last bit is lactose intolerance. Most people who are diagnosed as lactose intolerant, it's because they're drinking pasteurized milk, which no longer has the natural lactase in it to start to break down the lactose into simpler, more digestible sugars. So just drinking raw milk and retaining that lactase is enough for those people whose bodies no longer produce enough lactase for themselves. And they often find that the raw milk is just great, you know. No more burping, no more, you know, congestion or whatnot. Nonetheless, some people still have trouble with that, and so the next step would be to ferment and culture your milk. Doing so brings in the lactic acid bacteria that then go to work on that lactose, break it down into simpler sugars, and so as you culture your yogurt, if you leave it for longer, the yogurt gets more and more sour. That's less lactose in it and more digestible. I'm sure that my 15 minutes is up now, but I think that gives you a starter.